Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to a special video today talking about Biomutants. You guys might know I'm quite hyped for this game. We finally got a release date. It's going to be coming out on the 25th of May this year. It's made by Studio 101 and it's published by THQ Nordic. It's an open world hack and slash RPG heavy crafting mechanics sort of game where you have a creature that you can make yourself and then literally go through the world helping out other factions while you're trying to defeat 4 bosses that are trying to pretty much help destroy the world even more. I am absolutely in love with this game. I think I'm definitely going to try and keep up with it at least on a weekly basis, scouring for news, any information, and then start doing maybe spotlights as we get closer to release. So if you go and check out my channel, you will see a couple of these videos. Just type in JPG Biomutants, check out the previous stuff I've already done on it. And if you like it, make sure you're subscribed. Anyhow, let's get on with today's news, which is a brand new interview with IGN and a few other snippets of information that I think really give a good idea of what the game is going to be like, what kind of bosses there are, what is the story of the game, and how it will progress, how you will go through this open world game. Also, has the solar system been cut from the game? This was something that was put on an Amazon description when they announced this stuff last week, but it's been removed now, so we're going to investigate that a little bit too. There's going to be 6 tribes in the world. 3 of them are going to be based on light and 3 of them are going to be based on dark. And there is this idea of a morality system or a good and dark sort of universe. You'll start the game by allying with one leader from a tribe, and from there you'll go and take on outposts. Now outposts are a bit of a tired old method for open world games, but they're effective. Now these outposts are each owned by one of the 6 tribes. So when you conquer these outposts, you're pretty much conquering them for the tribe that you aligned with, and you may get new sort of favour with some of the other allies. The 3 light tribes go against the 3 dark tribes, and it looks like the 3 light tribes want to try and save the world, whereas the dark tribes kind of want to destroy it because they think it deserves a fresh start. Get enough points with your tribe or your allies and you can become the tribe's champion. You'll get a special weapon, you'll learn a brand new fight style, i.e. a new combat technique, and you'll also get a bunch of new shops that will open up in outposts. Now when these outposts open up, you will get access to brand new mounts. We've seen some of the creatures in the game, but also a clockwork finger hand thing. When you've conquered all 3 of a rival tribe outposts, you'll then be able to assault their fortress. So again, very Ghost of Tsushima-like as well there. At the end of that, you can decide the destiny of the rival tribe's Sifu, the leader. And all of that could impact the end game result, what kind of ending you're going to get. Now, if you want to mix things up a bit, you're not locked in on a path of being a light ending or a dark ending. You can leave a tribe at any time and have a change of heart, but you will have to go and reconquer dominated outposts in the name of the new tribe. So that seems like a lot of busy work, but I can understand how would that work. You don't have to worry though about them tribes coming back. You're not going to be doing any sort of base defense. When you take over a tower, that tower is yours and the tribe that you're in until you decide to change, and then you're going to have to just redo it again. So let's start moving on to the bosses. So there are 4 big huge bosses and they all have something very much to do with the Tree of Life, which has 4 roots. Now these World Eater bosses are pretty much trying to destroy the Tree of Life, and they've maybe succeeded and you might get a chance to stop them or you might not. Now to take on the 4 bosses you'll actually need some of the equipment or some of these special modes of transport. Things like the mech suit, which is in the game, a water ski, a submarine, or the Goo Glide. These vehicles, these combat options are really important. It looks like you're not going to be able to progress or take on some of these huge World Eater bosses unless you use some of these vehicles. You're going to have to go and talk to NPCs and side characters to try and get access to these vehicles. And once you combine all of that with the choices you made about what leaders you kept alive or what ones you didn't, what tribes you aligned with and which ones you didn't, you may get different endings, and it will ultimately be up to you whether or not to destroy the Tree of Life or not. Now that's a really cool concept. I love the idea of this. Put in some Mass Effect sort of style choices, Renegade or Paragon. I think that's a really smart move. Definitely for replayability with a game like this. I could see loads of people trying it out over and over again just to see what kind of ending they get. Now I'm not saying it's going to have 20 different endings, but certainly it does look like there might be more than just maybe the dark and light ending. The interview doesn't really go into where your backstory is from. You'll explore that a little bit more. But we've actually spoken about 2 main parts of the story of the game, and the 3rd part is going to explore a little bit where you're from. So it does look like there's be 3 sort of branches you can go down. Structure 1 is going and helping these tribes, these factions, or not, or going to war. Structure 2 is what you do with the world tree, I think, and then the structure 3 is this exploring where you've come from and who you are. Now, it is an open world game and made by the creator of Just Cause, or one of the creators of it, so you can expect some pretty bombastic stuff. Now, you will be able to go pretty much anywhere you want, but their map is actually a diamond shape. Now, it's actually 8km by 8km style diamond, and effectively they want you to start in the bottom corner and you kind of work your way through, and that's going to obviously give you a bit of rail action, tell you how to play the game, show you the ropes at the first stages, and then you'll have many more options to go and explore deeper into it before then maybe going back into the top corner where it's going to be obviously the game's conclusion. There are some warnings though. Some zones, like the dead zone, you need oxygen, so you might need a special mask before you can progress through there, or in this instance they've said you're going to need the mech suit before you can go through without suffocating. So there will be some natural gating, and I don't mind that. I think that obviously builds with the story, as long as it's not simply just a case of arbitrary going into a new zone and enemies all have red markers on their heads saying that you can't damage them. But something that actually matters, that's part of a story that allows you to try out new features. I think that's a good idea. But they haven't ruled out that you won't be able to go in there. Like I said, it does look like you may be able to find ways, maybe with masks or mutations, that you might be able to. Here later in the interview it says here you can use biomutant's gear mutation systems help into those areas, and then once you've got your gas mask it will help, but with no mech suit you still might find a lot of the enemies quite challenging. You will be able to go and explore any of the factions or the characters in any order, and you don't have to go and do the main quest. You can do the side quests whenever you want, or the main quest whenever you want. For the rest of the map, well, to get into higher places you might need access to the air balloon, or being able to put bouncing mushrooms dotted around the landscape, or you can even learn to fly yourself using telekinesis. You might be able to glide over obstacles with a wingsuit, and obviously that's definitely where a lot of people see comparisons with Breath of the Wild. Obviously being able to have lots of mounts as well as that funny hand too, and this bubble that just moves around. It's really cool features here. So this is all great stuff. Recent interviews were only like last week where they spoke about why it's taken Biomutant so long to actually come out. I think I might have covered this just a little bit, but I definitely saw a couple of these floating around a bit more after I did my last video. Stefan Lindquist, the studio head, says they just didn't want the crunch. They had a small team, only 20 people in the actual studio, and they've been just working on bug fixing and QA, and yeah, they didn't want to have to rush through and spend all their lives at the studios. Back in late 2019, the script for the game was only 85,000 pieces. It's now 250,000, so a lot more has been put into the game in that delayed time. Lindquist said they didn't really have much pressure from their publisher, THQ Nordic. They wanted to keep the developers that were working on the game, and if they started crunching and people started leaving, they couldn't really afford for that to happen. They needed their tight-knit group of developers to just be consistent rather than overworked. Now, that's not to say the game's not going to have bugs, of course it will, but they are pretty confident that it's not going to have a lot of disruptive bugs. As we've seen, and a lot of you guys have commented on the last video, we don't want this to be another Cyberpunk. I think that's pretty unfair. This game isn't in the same ballpark yet. I mean, I hope it does end up being that way. But Cyberpunk was built by a studio with world renown, a pedigree behind them, and hugely successful games. This is 101's first big game, and although they've got experience working on big franchises and big games in the past, I still think it's a bit harsh to judge them in that kind of context. Again, especially since only 20 people have made it, whereas like 500, 600, maybe even more made Cyberpunk. Also, something else that wasn't really released as well, that Biomutant will be available or playable on the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S as well, but it's not necessarily going to be a next gen upgrade straight away. They're going to launch the game, and then after that I'm sure they're going to be updating it and making it much better for the next gen games. And I did just want to touch on what happened with the solar planets or the solar system. So look at the Amazon listing for Biomutant right now. They've removed anything that mentions the robotic sidekick and the solar system. It says you'll still be able to go beneath the surface of the planet, so I'm guessing that may just still be like the water in the submarine, etc. But now take a look. On the very first day they announced that Biomutant's release date was coming at the 2 collector's editions, or the page on the Amazon site. It says on the collector's edition you're going to have bionic systems, powerful prosthetics, so we need to cover that as well, and also the Automan sidekicks. Now, I've mentioned this a couple of times in a few other interviews, but they've not delved into it just yet. I'm guessing it's going to be drip fed to us over the coming months. can clearly see it mentions solar system, it mentions underworlds, not just underwater. It does mention planets. You are going to be going to other places. So has this been cut from the game? Is it just a case of them not wanting to reveal too much too soon? I would assume this is a big marketing selling point to show that your game is ambitious and massive and you can go to different planets. Or is it a case of some of them planets maybe being considered as DLC in the future? Not too sure. I have to see if we can dig around, maybe get some answers from the creators and see if it's going to be something soon, or is it just part of marketing and yeah, we won't actually hear about it until nearer the time. My mind is racing now. Is what if that third act where you discover who you are is you going exploring other planets after you've actually saved the planet or not? That would give you a good reason. You know, if the planet, you decide to let the planet die, then you've got to probably escape that planet, hence why you might go and visit other areas. I still think the way that they're blending it all together is really cool. The mix of martial arts and that sort of Devil May Cry combo combat, the mutations that you can have with your characters, I think that's really important too. In another previous interview from last year, they did speak about the importance of the DNA of your characters and how pretty much you'll choose between 6, or this will kind of lead your character to what kind of build it will be. We've seen that this is actually physically represented. When you mix and move around the cursor on your character, this changes the look of him, and this will give you your extra stats in what you want to put your stats into. But it doesn't look like it's locked in completely. You will be able to gain new mutations based on what you're doing out in the world, and that will definitely give you some more stuff to use. So there we go, guys. Hopefully that's whetted your appetite a little bit more for Biomutant. It's going to be a stacked month in May. We've got the Mass Effect remaster. We've got a bunch of other games like Resident Evil coming out. Possibly Far Cry is being rumoured that month. It does seem like the month for RPGs. There are a good few other games also releasing. So I really hope Biomutant doesn't come buried underneath it all. Although it's mixing up quite a lot of the same sort of systems we've seen in the past, like the towers, like some factions, and some are even the ways that you get across the world. So yeah, super excited. I am going to try and do a weekly video on this from now on. And of course, if we start getting loads of information, I'll do as much as I can whenever we get it. So keep it locked on for my channel for the best in survival and open world game content. And I'll see you rat bags later.